Hey there, it's Dr. Rory Cernik here from the Hearing Assessment Center. It wasn't too long ago that the World Health Organization classified the coronavirus, the COVID-19, as a pandemic, and they do so because this pandemic, this virus, has the capacity to impact and affect millions and millions of people. So I'm within the hearing care space. I'm an audiologist. I want to talk about an epidemic within my field, and that is noise trauma and a noise-induced hearing loss. And before you think this doesn't impact you, wait till you hear some of these statistics. Noise trauma touches more people than I think a lot realize. And so first, let's define what is a noise-induced hearing loss, and it is simply trauma and damage to the auditory system, in particular the inner ear and what's called the organ of Corti. And so think of the organ of Corti like the retina in the eye. It's the sense organ for hearing. Noise-induced hearing loss is either based on genetic or environmental factors, and environmental factors are far more likely, but we're seeing that if you have noise trauma in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, many of us, just by being born, have genetic hearing loss, and so most people in their 6th or 7th decade of life, they're going to have hearing loss. But we're finding that noise trauma in our 20s, 30s, and 40s speeds up the progression of genetic hearing loss. And so noise trauma, it comes in one of two forms. Number one is your loud impact noise. And so think of that like a gunshot, or if you're driving a nail into the wall. All it takes is one episode, one time, and your hearing can be changed forever. The second and most common is a loud level continuous noise, and think of this as if you're mowing the lawn. In Maryland, the weather's starting to change. More and more of us are out there starting to cut the lawn. Please wear hearing protection. But also, it can be something as simple as a concert. My parents grew up and they loved the Rolling Stones, and it wasn't too long ago they had the privilege of seeing them in concert. And my concern is that when they were younger, and they're still very young, they're in their 60s, but when they saw them in maybe their teen years or 20 years, what you would do, it was cool to be next to the speaker and just let that sound wash over you. But I don't want them to do that now because I don't want that to change and impact the way that they hear. So I advise them to wear, please, mom, dad, wear some type of hearing protective device. Noise trauma impacts multiple industries, but just as importantly, it does not discriminate based on age. For example, and here's a shocking statistic, and I wish we could change it tomorrow, 20% of adolescents in this country have noise-induced hearing loss. And I see that more often in athletes, and that's because whether they're 10 or 12 or on the varsity sport team, if they're exercising and they have the headset, they get their adrenaline going and their energy up. Then what happens? The volume goes up in the earpieces. All it takes is 5 minutes at too loud of a level, and trauma can happen. 25 million people in the United States under the age of 70 are exposed to damaging noise on a daily basis. Again, 20% of adolescents. 22 million Americans working, and some can be in the trades or in the factory settings or musicians or dentists. The list goes on. 22 million Americans every day are exposed to potentially loud noise, which can be toxic to the auditory system. Firefighters. I've had the privilege, and many of them are above the age of 40, but I've had the privilege of working with so many firemen and women. But the unfortunate reality is that 99%, subjectively in my mind, in the clinic, 99% of them have some type of noise-induced hearing loss. And that was because when they were working in the 70s, 80s, 90s, even in the early 2000s, we didn't know that noise damage or noise, high-level noise, was toxic to the auditory system. And what I tell them, it was like cigarettes or lead paint or asbestos. We were around these items years ago because you didn't know the consequence. We now know the consequence of high-level noise exposure, and that is hearing loss and tinnitus. Tinnitus, tinnitus, However you say it, it's equally bad. It is noise in your head and or ears. And so following this video, we're going to talk more about the firemen, other trades that are exposed to loud level noise. We're going to see if we can reduce or flatten the curve within this epidemic. Stay tuned. Again, Dr. Cernik, talk to you soon.